Wait, and now we're live.
Hello, this is the
Yes.
Anime Rightist, or this is Real Ethology Podcast.
Exactly. Today we're going to discuss existential inertia, as well as the megamoral fruit's argument against the existence of God. And obviously, we're joking with this. Today we're going to talk.
Wait, it was a joke?
I just realized I have this. No, today what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the Star Wars Prequel Trilogy. And I'm going to ask the question, is it Kino?
Attack the Clones is Kino.
With me is my co-host, Kayak. Say hello, Kayak.
No.
Okay. So other than that, we will be joined by Aris later on, and River Run might join us later. The River Run. The River Run, who once interviewed E. Michael Jones on Uncensored Politics. That's actually part of the Deep Lore Kayak.
Yeah, he's like the shadow manager for Reason and Theology.
Yes. And he's going to argue, if he's showing up, he's going to argue with us whether or not the Star Wars prequels are Kino. I guess, since nobody's here yet, we could either talk about what we've been reading, or we could talk about how we first came to watch the Star Wars prequels, how we first came to be aware of them. What would you rather do? Kayak. Kayak asked a question. I guess we could quickly do like the thing that we did last week. Kayak, what have you been reading?
I have been reading Gilbert Ryle, Plato's Progress.
Nice. Same book as last week.
Yes. I haven't had much time to finish it.
Yeah, I was just reading a couple of papers here and there. I don't remember the names of any of them. I just remember that some of them were on John Finnis' natural law theory and on F.A. Hayek. Sometimes even both, believe it or not. Which is a strange sort of like crossover, but the content of the papers was still pretty good. Other than that, I've been reading a book by Douglas Rasmussen called The Norms of Liberty, a perfectionist basis for non-perfectionist politics. So yeah, that's what I've been reading, and I should get into Wittgenstein real soon, because I actually need it for one of my essays.
Awesome.
Yeah. Also, we have like a spectacular 2 viewers in the audience.
Yo, we should get John Milbank on.
Get who?
We need to get John Milbank on the podcast and have him talk to BizCat.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, can we? Has Jay Dyer blocked you?
Not on Twitter, no.
Well, could you? Since he's
we should get him on. We should get him on to talk about the occult Hollywood.
Yeah, since he's the author of Esoteric Hollywood, it might be prudent to just get him on, right? Yeah, that would be pretty based even. Yeah, could you send him an invite link and tell him to come on to discuss the Star Wars prequels and the esoteric meaning?
So
Ask
the
the
problem
M's
with
open.
that, the problem with that is that his DMs aren't open.
Ah, damn it. Wait. Do we know anyone who has like his personal Discord info or something like that? Actually, do you have his Discord? He might have.
I don't
He has
have it.
blocked me
I'm banned
off.
from the server for beating him in a debate.
Yeah, he. Oh, but do you still have like his info? Like,
His
I
docs?
remember I was. No, not his dog.
Maybe, but wait, I shouldn't have said that.
We're not going to dox Sri Daya, but he blocked,
It's
so I
already been
might
done.
be able to get him in.
All right. Well, let's edit that out.
What has been done?
Nothing. All right, so let's talk about the Star Wars
I think you're
prequels.
roboting.
Nothing has been done. Let's talk about the Star Wars prequels.
Oh, now I can hear you. All right, so when's the first time when you ever came across the Star Wars prequels, Kayak?
I was like probably like 6 or something, 4. Falls.
Yeah, that's pretty basic. I also was like 6 years old when I came across them, and I can pretty much tell you how that came about because I turned 6 in the year 2005, and as you probably know, 2005 is also the year when Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, was released in theaters. So as a result, like children's programming on television and like the toy stores, all were like, like the commercials and children's programming told me about the fact that this cool new movie called Revenge of the Sith existed, and that it had a guy in like a black suit and a red lightsaber in it, and I thought it was really cool. And then obviously like all the toy stores had like all the related Star Wars toys, and so that's how I found out about the movie. Now, funnily enough, my parents didn't allow me to watch it in theaters, so I kind of had to watch it a couple of years later on DVD, like I think 1 or 2 years later. But I did watch right after that. I did watch The Phantom Menace on VHS. What was the first Star Wars prequel that you watched?
Phantom Menace. Yeah.
So you
everybody
started in Chrome. Sorry.
Everybody in my family was a Star Wars fan, basically.
Oh, that's cool. Like my parents weren't Star Wars fans at all. In fact, my father knew a little bit about it. My mom knew next to nothing about it. But yeah, like I soon developed like a strong interest in it, and in fact, I used to have a Revenge of the Sith comic book that came out when I still have it, I think, which was released around the time the movie was released. Because even though I wasn't allowed to watch the movie, I was allowed to read the comic book. And I remember carrying it with me everywhere. And like my parents were slightly concerned about it. So they were hiding the comic book away from me for like a solid year or so.
Your parents are a bit weird, yeah.
Well, I was the first child.
They wouldn't let you watch Star Wars, bro.
They didn't quite know how to handle it. To be fair, so the Star Wars movies did receive, they did receive a PG-13 rating essentially in Germany, and I know that's like more or less also what they received in America.
Only the third one.
Phantom Menace received a PG rating at I know. Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones received like a PG rating, and then Revenge of the Sith received its PG-13 rating. However, in Germany, the view that some parents have on like a movie getting a PG-13 is slightly more strict than as it seems to be in America. So like even though you can still go with your parents, not all of them are in fact happy about the idea that you would watch like a movie that's rated PG-13. So that was pretty much my parents when I was 6 years old, and then over time I kind of managed to watch them anyways, either like on VHS because like a friend of mine had them at their house, or like when I was at my grandparents' place, they had like a video rental store, and like grandparents are generally a bit more lenient with these things. That's how I got to see Attack of the Clones. Also, do you see the messages we have in the comment section on the stream?
No, let me just pull it out.
This is kind of weird.
Do we have? Are they nice?
We have a weird user called 69xxx.live saying "Find your love here, find your love here, find your love here," in 3 separate messages.
I don't see that.
I think to but yeah, as I said, so my parents weren't big Star Wars fans. They only really allowed me to watch the movies later, although obviously later they watched them with me multiple times. Even though to this day, I think my mother doesn't remember that much from the movies. In fact, I could probably sit her down in front of the TV like tomorrow and show her like all the Star Wars movies again, and she wouldn't even have an idea that she watched them in full length before. Because mostly because she just doesn't care about them. But anyways, let's not talk about our unfortunate lives. Let's talk about the movies. So
Yeah.
Kayak, I guess we could talk about the first one first. So what are your general thoughts on Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace?
It was the weakest of the 3.
I do agree.
I like the pod racing scenes, but the rest of the movie sucked. The end was alright. The end was alright.
I do generally like the movie. So the Star Wars prequels are a bit of a weird one for me, right? Because as I told you, like I struggled sometimes to even watch the Star Wars movies as a kid. Then I kind of watched them all at like the age of 7 or 8, and I really fell in love with them, including the prequels, of course, because by that time all of these movies were released on DVD. I didn't have like the experience that like original trilogy purists had, where they only watched like the original trilogy and then the prequels were released. So I kind of watched the entire series, right? And the thing about that is if you're a kid and you have like all 6 movies available, then it's like, okay, these are all sort of equal in quality. But then as a teenager, I kind of stumbled upon like the criticism of the Star Wars prequels by like content creators like Red Letter Media, and that for a while I kind of turned into a bit of Star Wars Prequel Trilogy hater, you may say. And only upon like re-watching them sometime in like 2017 or so did I start really appreciating them. So with that out of the way, Star Wars The Phantom Menace is a weird one, because if you think about it, this was like the first time that you really had like, for a Star Wars movie, you had like this big that's called Fanboy Backlash, where a bunch of people were like really critical of the movie, and you can see why. It's like a flawed movie, but I would say it has like lots of really cool qualities. You just mentioned the pod racing, which I agree is like really cool. Is there like a part that you don't really like about it because you said it mostly sucks?
Yeah, so all the parts in between the end and the pod racing scene suck. Like Jar Jar Binks
Really?
just like ruined the whole movie basically.
So I'm not going to defend Jar Jar. However, I actually think that the Senate scenes are a bit cool. I know like everyone's kind of saying that they're boring because suddenly you have like these long political debates in like a Star Wars movie. But I generally enjoy the politics in Star Wars. I do like the whole Palpatine's grab to power story arc. It's sort of like one of my favorite things about this movie. Also, there's like some with the politics. There's something cool that happens with the story structure of the film that I'm not sure if you ever noticed this, but Kayak, did you ever notice how like everything that the main characters in episode 1 do doesn't really drive until they decide to return to Naboo and fight their battle? It doesn't really drive forward like their own goals. Like they go to Coruscant, but they don't really do anything on Coruscant that helps them. On their journey, sure, they find Anakin, and even though Anakin blows up the droid ship, like they mostly stumble on him by accident, and obviously within the trilogy, this will have like larger consequences, which are negative. But also, like the only purpose that their journey to Coruscant really serves ultimately is not one that they deliberately came up with, but they are essentially like just serving the purpose of Palpatine to gain more power. So really, the entire movie, The Phantom Menace, is like a sort of it's essentially a storyline in which the protagonists just serve the will of the big villain without really noticing it.
Yeah,
That's one of the story details I kind of like about it.
yeah. I think that so the thing with the prequel storyline is that it's like really important to the movies, right? It takes up a large portion of, but it's really underdeveloped, right? Like in the movies, it's really unclear, like who Palpatine is. Like it's unclear what. I mean, well, that makes sense, right? Because he's supposed to be like a mystery, but it's like unclear what like any of this like the Senate, like all this stuff is. It's just like out of nowhere, right? Uh, like it doesn't have
To be
much.
fair, we kind of know what a Senate is.
Yeah, but the movies don't tell you.
Sure, but like this kind of leads you into like a bit of a hot debate about this movie because many people sort of wonder, okay, like how much of the world building should the prequels have explained? Like there are lots of small details which seem relevant to the story which aren't explained too much, and like the Senate is obviously one of them. But I honestly don't necessarily think that you really have to explain what the Senate is. Like you get the idea; it's a
Well,
galactic Senate. So you
it
have
it would.
representatives from the Republic there.
Well, the thing is that there's like large portions of the movies which they're just like dialogue between different like politicians or the Jedi Council, yada yada yada. Uh, and they don't like there's nothing that tells you what they're talking about. You just like watch them just like blabber on, and it's just like unclear like what it's about at all. Uh, you have to like read like stuff or like look at like media outside of the prequels themselves to even know what the prequels are like. Large portions of the prequels are talking about. And it would be one thing if this were the type of medium, or this was the type of movie which was taking advantage of like mystery, right? It in some way like took advantage of this, but it just doesn't, right? It just has a ton of dialogue which is pointless and is unexplained. That's like one of the main problems I have with the movies. Uh, which it seems sort of like that they're like advertisements for like later stuff that was gonna happen, which of course did happen. Like the what was it? The Clone Wars TV show. I don't know, like all the merchandise that came out, yeah, like the books or whatever. Like that's sort of what it seems like it was like the movie was supposed to be. It was supposed to set up like all this stuff just to like make you want to learn more about it, right? So it sort of seemed like an advertisement more than like movies in a lot of respects.
Right. So I would perhaps object to that a little bit, because if you look at the Star Wars prequels, especially like the Phantom Menace, and you look, so you kind of can like easily infer what the Senate is there for, because you have like uh, Queen Amidala, you have her as like a representative of Naboo in the Senate. They more or less explicitly state that, so we kind of get the idea that like the Senate is filled with like representatives of like planets that are within the Galactic Republic. And then, of course, like before like the Senate meeting in the Phantom Menace, you kind of have like this discussion between Palpatine and Queen Amidala, where like Amidala clearly says, okay, she's here because she wants help with her people in Naboo, because the Trade Federation has invaded, right? Um,
But who are the
and
Trade
like
Federation?
Palpatine tells, that's actually like a
The
concern,
movies
and
don't tell
like
you
in
who they
that
are. Like,
regard, there once was a, well, we know that they are a trade federation, so they're
yeah, but
responsible
that's
for
my
trade.
well, my point is that there's just like so much like plot holes in the movie, and it would be one thing if uh the movie wasn't about like a bunch this all these like political like disputes, and that was just like a minor plot point. But that's like the whole point of the movies. It's like like the writing is not good. Uh
Well, like the idea is, technically speaking, I think like the movies only have to give you like an overview over like, okay, there exists a lot of like political red tape which Palpatine then can exploit. In regards to like the Senate meetings, I think it's fairly set up fairly well. The Trade Federation, I don't so much have a problem with the status of the Trade Federation. I think it makes more or less sense to have this federation which is involved in trade, and they have like a droid army, because like private enterprises like have like their own sort of militia. My main problem with something like the Trade Federation would be, and George Lucas admitted that he didn't think of this, is the villains in the Trade Federation, Newt Gunray and co. They don't necessarily have a clear motivation for why they're following Darth Sidious' orders. They don't have an explicit motivation that's mentioned. You can imagine, given their occupation, that they're probably motivated by some kind of greed. But they're not very fleshed out villains. And in fact, it might be like the biggest criticism for the Phantom Menace, that all the villains are very much there, and that's about it. Like, you have the Trade Federation guys, Newt Gunray and co. And, they are just like, as we just explained, they are bad guys. They follow Darth Sidious' orders, but we never really find out why. Darth Sidious is yet a bit too mysterious to have like clear motivation. To be fair, it gets unraveled in the later movies, but in this one, it's still a mystery overall. We then have Darth Maul, who is just Darth Sidious' apprentice, so he doesn't really have a will of his own either. At least not in this movie. I know they flesh him out in later comic books and in the Clone Wars and Rebels, etc. But for all intents and purposes, here he's just a Sith guy.
Yeah. That's like a kind of weird thing because like the climax of the entirety of the prequels is the fight with Darth Maul, right?
Of the Phantom Menace, yes.
Oh, I was thinking of the Revenge of the Sith.
Well, and he's dead in Revenge of the Sith. At least, like, originally as conceived by George Lucas, Darth Maul. I guess later we find out in the Clone Wars that he returned, but within the prequel trilogy, Darth Maul is dead in Revenge of the Sith, or not really. We do not meet him again in the prequel trilogy after Phantom Menace.
Wait.
Also, Sir Harkin said the Trade Federation motives are literally explained in the beginning. I mean, what they do is more or less explained. I do think that you don't get that much of, unless I'm mistaken, but I don't think I am, because George Lucas more or less explicitly stated that he didn't really come up with a motivation.
Wait, no
for
way,
the Trade Federation bad guys.
Why? How did I forget this? I thought that Darth Maul fought. I thought he fought Obi-Wan Kenobi in Revenge of the Sith. I've seen the movies like 20 times. How did I forget this?
It happens. This is the best prequel trilogy stream. Yeah. No, Revenge of the Sith. We're gonna get to that one, but that's essentially the duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and then Darth Sidious and Yoda. But yeah, actually, in this, there's Phantom Menace has one or two villains that have like fairly clear motivations, which is Watto and Sebulba.
Yeah.
So with Watto, obviously, like, he's a greedy merchant, and that sort of defines him. He's not the most fleshed out of villains, but I think he serves his purpose. And then obviously Sebulba is, he's trying to win the race. So that's probably like the most clearly defined villains in the movie, and they're more like side villains. By the way, I don't dislike the Trade Federation villains. I do like them, in fact. I do like. I also like the Asian accents, to be honest. I think that's like I think George Lucas tried to make like a cool little nod there to something like Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon, where in the 1930s with these serials, you had like a bunch of Asian bad guys.
Yeah, it could also be the Kurosawa movies. They sort of
sure.
like they're obviously supposed to be Chinese, right? Like they have like the Manchu head. They're supposed to be like Manchurians.
The Dr. Fu Manchu head.
Kurosawa.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, so I have a bit of a hot take about. The plot of the Phantom Menace in regards to the movies of Akira Kurosawa. So you know how like most people argue that, correctly argue that the Hidden Fortress is inspired. Sorry, Star Wars Episode 4: New Hope is inspired by the Hidden Fortress by Akira Kurosawa.
Yeah, it's like if you watch them, I've seen the movie. If you watch it, it's like impossible not to just like make constant connections.
Right, but I would argue that in a sense, the connections between the Hidden Fortress and the Phantom Menace are in some instances even more apparent. It's almost like a stronger case of trying to get the princess behind enemy lines, having to hide her in like a village. You get a bunch of extra characters, and because of like and nobody is quite clear about like the social status of the people. Like in Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress, the two thieves aren't aware of the fact that the princess is in fact the princess. Whereas in like the Phantom Menace, for the most time, isn't aware that Padme is the queen. In fact, the Jedi aren't even aware of the fact that Padme is the queen until she reveals it. And you kind of have like some of these similarities. I do think that in a sense, there are a lot stronger sort of references to the Hidden Fortress in the Phantom Menace than in A New Hope. Also, I think we got a message explaining the Trade Federation plot to us. They want to increase their own power over galactic trade, and Sidious orchestrated the Naboo plot as a way to help them and also force them into joining the Separatists in the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Oh goodness, we're gonna
it's
get
true.
taken down. I honestly think that Watto is probably a bit closer to that. His design is like overtly sort of Semitic, and like he even has the accent.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange. Also, yeah, I think since one of the guys here mentioned it, yeah, I think the Trade Federation species, the species of the guys, which I don't remember the exact name, but from what I remember, it was very much inspired by Leonard Nimoy's last name, I think. Also, I think this is a good question for you, Kayak. Did Jar Jar have the nose?
Wasn't he supposed to be black? Like he had a Jamaican accent, right?
Yeah, he's sort of vaguely Jamaican inspired.
Yeah. He's obviously not supposed to be like a Jew, right? Like that.
Yeah,
Remember, they were like a lower caste that was like put underwater, and they like all speak in like a really dumb way, right?
yeah.
Yeah, they live in like underwater slums, and then they speak like stupidly. Like obviously they're supposed to be black people, and then the people above them are like really racist to them, right? Like
there are actually racial tensions between them. That is
yeah,
established.
it's obviously supposed to be like uh a nod to like black power, right? Like that also ruined the Phantom Menace for me.
I'm not sure if it's that like Phantom Menace is weirdly all over the place with all the
It's
racial characterization. Like, you have the Asian villains who are supposed to be like Chinese. You have Watto, who's like a slave trader who's like strongly Semitic, and then you have the Jamaican inspired Gungans, who the Naboo think are kind of dumb, but they're actually like proud warriors. It's
yeah.
strange.
This is unrelated, but do you agree that the only good of the new Star Wars movies is Rogue One?
Yeah, sure.
Like I really liked Rogue One. It was actually really good.
I mean, this is kind of the this might turn into a bit of a detour, but I do like Rogue One quite a bit. I was never really in love with it, but recently we got the Cassian Andor show, and I think that's actually pretty decent, to be honest. It's probably like the only good thing that Disney has done with Star Wars. The rest has been kind of garbage.
Yeah. Well, the only problem with Rogue One is that it's not very Star Warsy, right?
In that case, like it's more or less the same with Andor. It's better than everything else that Disney has done, but it doesn't feel that much like Star Wars.
Like it feels like an
But
art
anyways,
film.
let's not talk. Sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's not spend too
All
much
right, back to the Phantom
time on it.
Menace.
Like yeah. Let's talk about the good stuff. Um. So yeah, like one other thing that people sometimes criticize, even though I think this is also more of a carryover from something like the Hidden Fortress, is that the Phantom Menace doesn't really have the protagonist with a capital P, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like A New Hope has Luke Skywalker, obviously, and Luke Skywalker is very much like your sort of young naive hero who goes on the hero's journey. And the Phantom Menace has not really that one really distinct main character. It has sort of like a series of characters, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like all of them do something important at some point, but there's no like standout. This is the hero that really goes through an arc, and like we focus on most of the time.
Wasn't there
Character.
wasn't there two like main characters roughly in the Hidden Fortress?
I mean the Hidden Fortress has the two thieves, but those are actually they are sort of the main characters, but they also don't really go through an arc, and like the story isn't necessarily focused on them. It's more like viewed through their perspective.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a very Star Warsy thing as well. Like the Phantom Menace, the story is not focused on Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan, etc. Like these are just like characters that are like involved heavily in what's going on. Yo,
wait a second.
Hey, how we doing, man?
We have arrows in you.
I can barely hear you
How you
over
doing, arrows?
feedback on this thing. Oh, far out. Anyhow, how we doing?
we're doing good. We're talking about the Phantom Menace.
This is far out. I can hear nothing. uh no what? I'm gonna have to let me just head outside. I'll disconnect and I'll come back.
All
This is a
right.
bit much.
Okay, all right.
Have a good pet.
Also,
I was going to tell him to have a good petrol sniff.
also, Sir Harkin said the two main characters are Qui-Gon and Anakin, and their relationship is the most important part of the movie. I partially agree. Like Qui-Gon is obviously very important for like Anakin's future development, and Anakin is obviously like sort of the key character which this trilogy is going to revolve around. But they aren't necessarily, like the Luke Skywalker equivalent in this. I would say that Phantom Menace has still much more of a emphasis on like having an ensemble cast than let's say New Hope.
Yeah.
So yeah, so what do you think about the battle droids?
The battle. I thought it was a pretty good battle. The only part I didn't like is that the Gungan
The
were
battle droids
involved.
that the villains have. No, like the things that shoot the Gungans. do you remember?
I'd like
battle
it if they just
droids?
like got all killed.
Kayak?
What? What did
Do
you
you
say?
remember the battle droids?
Oh! I thought
The
you said
battle
the
droids,
battle with the
the robots
droids.
that
or battle
Right.
of the
Okay.
droids. I didn't realize you meant battle droids. Yeah, I like the battle droids.
Yeah, it's a cool, interesting because they're essentially like this trilogy stand-in for the stormtroopers, in a sense, because you need your faceless army of goons that you can essentially just like the Jedi can essentially cut them in pieces, and like you have essentially cannon fodder for the movie for action scenes, and they came up with like a really creative design for these, and like they look pretty cool, and it makes sense that they have like this army of battle droids. I like the idea a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. They actually kind of they actually also like one of the reasons why I actually enjoy the battle with the Gungans, because you kind of have like this whole scene where like the droids are activated from the control ship, and then getting activated kind of looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's from like a purely sort of like world building tech sort of perspective. I really enjoy that part of the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you had to give this movie like a score out of 10, what would you rate it?
I'd rate it a 6 out of 10.
I would probably go with a 7 out of 10. I really like this. This is not as good as the other ones, but I do like it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Anyways, Kayak, I think you were quite excited to talk about
Oh yeah, I am.
Attack of the Clones. So this is
Yeah,
a favorite
the
of the
Attack.
Star Wars prequels.
Uh-huh. It used to just be my favorite Star Wars movie.
We're going back now. Hey.
Aris is back.
Back from the petrol sniffing.
Yeah, back from the petrol sniffing. Yeah, basically. Close enough, close enough. Oh, how we boys doing?
Aris, we're doing well.
Yeah?
We were about
Yeah, we just got to the Attack of the Clones. The best of the
Oh, hell yeah, nice. Yeah, cool.
Harris, are you an Attack of the Clones enjoyer?
I am. I definitely am
No!
an Attack of the Clones connoisseur. Yeah. No, absolutely. I would never rag on the second prequel movie. Oh, no, neither of the three, honestly. Fucking masterpieces, dude. You know, I rewatched Phantom Menace not so long ago. I think, actually, no, it would have been like a couple of days ago. It's just so brilliantly goofy. Like, every fucking line, like, no, I guess every line is a fucking meme, and we've, like, what? Like, we're all around the same age, so we probably grew up with it, like, what? From the age of, like, 4 or 5 or something. Yeah. So it's, like, all ingrained in, like, memory. It's, like, every line that comes about, like, just muscle memory just spews it back out of my mouth. Like, it's great. Anyhow, finally found a quiet spot. Yeah, you guys were saying Attack of the Clones. What in Attack of the Clones you guys up to in the discussion?
Oh, we just started.
we just started talking.
Oh, okay. Oh, just started talking generally. Okay, yeah. Cool.
The
Yeah,
best
so
part
I guess-
had to be the Django Fett, right? Like you can't. The Django Fett part was just.
Well, with
I mean,
Mace
it
Windu
is.
or with like in like Camino or whatever.
Well, in Camino.
Oh, okay, yeah, based. Yeah. Oh. No, nothing will ever be as satisfying as that bloody what was it, the grenade that he like the pulse grenade he like spews out of the like the butt of his shit, like the slave one. Fuck. That is just a gorgeous sound.
That's the best sound design.
Yeah. There's literally nothing that I can think of that tops it. And they even like failed to recreate it properly in like the Jango Fett series or whatever. Like they tried and they like missed it by a bit. I'm like, nah, that's it. No, nothing tops the Attack of the Clones for this very reason. One time they tried to imitate it, they failed. Anyhow.
It is probably the most satisfying sound design in any of these movies, like the entire series, to be honest. Just having
Yep.
this.
Yep.
No, there's no sound at all, and then that very distinct, particular. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I was gonna like try and imitate it with just like vocal sound effects. I'm like, I don't even know where to start. Like, no, like no, like there's no way I can like try and recreate it. Like, yeah, it's just like so one of a kind. Anyhow, I mean, like, yeah, that's where good old Lucas's brilliance comes in. Like, surely he like micromanaged the shit out of that one sound.
Oh yeah, like he micromanaged these movies a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess
probably,
props to
remember
him for
behind
everything.
You probably remember the behind the scenes material where they kind of just show like George Lucas going through all the sort of concept art for the different planets. And the stamp of approval.
No, nothing will for me, like out of the Lucas micromanagement, I think my favorite still has to be like Anakin's hairdo, where they were trying to like figure out what they were going to eventually do for Revenge of the Sith. And I was just like, if there was a possibility that he would have given like Anakin some like faux hawk, or like so whatever the other crap that like the Aussie hairdressers were deciding to like dress Hayden Christensen up, and then eventually he was just like not like autistic enough for him, so he was like, no, it's gonna be like more. What did he say? It was like not majestic. No, it was like roguish. Yeah, that's it. It wasn't roguish enough for him, and that was like the whole reason why like Anakin's like what was it, like character design doesn't become like something absolutely like god awful. But no, good on him.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, since Kayak already told us his favorite part of like Attack of the Clones, what is yours, Harris?
Damn. Fuck, that's a good one. Okay, well, I guess going back to the bloody grenade isn't really cutting it. That's like it's not really a part as it is like a moment. My favorite part. That's. I feel like there's something like uniquely goofy about the kind of cafe scene with like Obi-Wan and what is it, like the guy with like 4 or 6 arms. I don't know. They like tried to recreate this like American like brunch bar looking thing, and I don't know. It always stuck out, not for any particular reason, just because it's like just silly, and I don't know. I kind of like that, so I'll give that my stamp of approval. That has the Ara stamp of approval of the best moment of Attack of the Clones, for no other reason apart from the fact that it's just goofy.
So that's his diner. His 90s
yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Yeah, just having like this one of I think 4-armed guy with like robot waitresses in the middle of Coruscant.
Yeah.
For some reason.
The whole point of that is just setting for discussion. So like Obi-Wan can be like, so where did like this assassination, like how did it come about? Like where did this little like thing come from? And then he it's because of that like basically the plot can move forward, because Dex can like point him out to like, oh well, this has like this or that make. I'm like, I don't even remember there being like any kind of like explanation as to how this guy knows any of this. It's just here's this goofy guy in a goofy setting, basically being like perhaps a make or break point for like the movement of the plot. I'm just like, I don't know what Georgie was exactly thinking, but unintentional genius.
Yeah, like I think love the fact that you have this random diner owner who knows about secret cloning facilities.
Wait, did he even wait? So what did he know exactly? Like, I like it escapes me now. But like, so he knew details of whatever it was that. No, oh, that's
So,
that's
like,
so funny, really.
the poison dart, could just
Yeah.
give it a look. And there was like a deleted scene where droids were trying to catalog it and they couldn't. But like Dexter Jetster, oh boy, was just gave it a look and could tell Obi-Wan where it's from, what the planet does, where it's from. That they have cloning facilities, and that they clone
Wow.
for like money, and that they also have
Yeah.
like bounty hunters involved or something.
Well, I think that
Wait.
was
He knew all of
the
these
reason,
things.
like the reason, right? Presumably, since it's in like it's like a bar in the underworld, right? If there's bounty hunters involved, then
Well, it's a diner.
Yeah. It looked pretty tame. Like,
Yeah. It looks like the kind of place I would have lunch there with my family, probably.
yeah, exactly. And like, my question is like, okay, so despite all
presumably
the nitpicky autism,
the guy was in the underworld for a while, right?
Okay, so he was,
Maybe.
and so despite the very homely setting, we have a guy who's like seasoned veteran navigating the underworld.
Well, where
and so he's
would he
able
have
to analyze
met
it.
Obi-Wan, right?
I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I'm glad he didn't meet him anywhere else. Otherwise, that scene wouldn't have been as like special in my heart as it already is. But
I mean, that's just sort of what I got out of it,
Yes.
right? Like the guy, this is like the equivalent of like a retired police officer, right?
Yeah, okay. I actually fit so much nicer now. Like, yeah, okay, that's why it's like a 90s, 50s diner. That's why he's meeting him in such a casual place, like as this like restaurant owner kind of thing.
Yeah,
my only question is like,
supposed to sort of be
isn't
like a retired cop.
yeah,
character.
yeah. The only question then becomes, wasn't Camino like not there in like the Jedi archives? Wasn't that the whole thing? Was it like, so how does like this
Oh, yeah,
guy
it was
like
deleted
know
from the
something
Jedi
that's
archives.
yeah
The
like,
Jedi just
okay,
don't know
so
about
he
it,
knows
but
something
the Jetster knows. I think there was like on the Blu-ray, there was a bit about like the the guys who designed Dexter Jetster talking about how they imagined him to be like an ex bounty hunter or something. I don't know if that's like the canon
Okay.
explanation, but I always kind of liked that.
Yeah, I can see that working. Yeah, although now that you mentioned kayak, I write very like that ex cop like idea is very much more endearing than like ex bounty hunter. I definitely like, yeah, I'd rather that be canon honestly than like the ex bounty hunter. Oh, the ex bounty hunter obviously works. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like the archetype, I suppose, of like, you know, in like Western movies where there'll be like a saloon and then like there'll be like this like old waiter who like knows everything, right? That you could just like ask him if you like give enough money. I think he's sort of like a combination of like the ex-cop and then that, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's supposed to be his character.
Yeah,
also,
no, fair.
I
Okay,
that you mentioned like the uniqueness of having like this sort of conversation in the diner. It's even funnier if you consider the fact that in Attack of the Clones we actually visit two bar type locales. Like one is like the sort of like sleazy sports bar where they sell death sticks and all of that, and the other is the diner. And we get like the sort of quintessential information about Camino, not in the sleazy death stick sports bar, but in the diner. That's sort of like a focal point for that.
Wait.
No.
Born 382 BBY. How old is the guy supposed to be? He said so.
When did this?
Upon meeting Obi-Wan, he just said, "You are very young," right? When does Attack of Clones take place? 22 BBY. Okay.
Oh wow.
So 22. Yeah, so he's 360 years old.
All right.
Oh, he's been around then.
Yeah, so he's like, he is absolutely just supposed to be this like old cop type character. Retired cop. working at the diner, friends with the fact that he's friends with the Jedi, that tells you everything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's probably like
Right.
EU canon stuff where like him and Qui-Gon have like interacted, surely, being good friends, and that's how Obi-Wan knows him or something. I don't know, conjecture.
Yeah,
But
you could just like
surely.
imagine this as like a Western movie, right? And
Yeah.
then it's like there's like this bullet that's found, and then he takes it to this old geezer, former Civil War veteran, right? At the saloon, and it's like this right here is from the whatever Lee Enfield. I don't know, like really old gun, right? He tells you the exact location where it's from. I can see by the manufacturer. See this right here, this little indent on the bullet. Like you could totally see it as that, right?
It's
My
funny
question is,
because
how
that's
far can we
almost like word for
push
word
that?
also
Like,
the dialogue in a
yeah.
Dynasty.
Like the diner scene makes complete sense to me. The fact that it's not in the Jedi archives, I think that's supposed to like be that also fits well into the plot, because remember, the Jedi are in decline, right? Like this is the decline of the Jedi Order. So the fact that the Jedi
Also,
archives are
Count
just
Dooku
like
just deleted that
don't
stuff.
have like information on this. It's meant to like expand on that plot line more.
Okay. My question is, how far can
Also,
we
Count
push
Dooku
the
just deleted.
Western? No. Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Tyrannus just got rid of it because he could. So I guess that's Oh, I don't know how much of that's like the fault of the Jedi in decline. I guess it's part of it.
Speaking of
It-
But like, how
Tyrannus,
far can you push that Western analogy? Like, okay, we've got this like, we've been through like a couple of bar type like scenarios. We've had this like, okay, the assassination could fit here. Of like, like how, like, where does something like obviously a bounty hunter obviously fits in this kind of Western and like allegory, like an analogy type thing. But like,
and then there
what
was
are
like a
what are the
bar fight that happened earlier, right?
yeah, okay, yeah. So then like, okay, if we move like further along in the plot, then right, like what else fits, and how does it how could we make it fit into like the Western analogy? Like I'm not even thinking as far as like Geonosis or something, but like Camino, like, well, like that's kind of like at least some massive part of the reveal. But like, can we ham fist that into like a Western kind of in some way? Like, is it possible, or am I just like shooting in the dark a little? What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's absolute. Yeah, that actually no, that works perfectly, because okay, so think about
Yeah.
space operas, right? Like when did they come about? Like the late 19th century, early 20th century, right?
Okay.
1920s, 1930s.
So they were like this romanticism about a frontier that's unconquered, right? This space where you have like these single people going out in these like grand missions, and then like fighting political dictatorships or whatever. Get like like this is obvious. Like space operas were obviously heavily inspired by westerns, right? And by like the stories,
Oh yeah.
the
In fact,
stories of American frontiersmen. Now, Camino, this fits
term
perfectly.
came about. Sorry, can I quickly? The
It's
term
a
came about.
it's a common storyline. It's a common storyline in both Civil War movies and in westerns, right? That there'll be like somebody who spies on a large government training facility for like they go into the like the volunteer camp territory, right? And then they like leak a bunch of information about it. I actually just saw like a movie yesterday that was about this sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted
Okay.
to give a bit of support to Kayak's theory because the term space opera actually came about because around the same time, you kind of westerns were sometimes called horse operas.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, that's news.
Bro,
Yeah.
they
I know
got
that one
it,
before.
it. It has a bunch of like really like long extended fights, right, with bounty hunters. There's a lone, basically like a government official, like the Jedi's are government officials, wandering about, right, fighting bounty hunters. How is this not Western inspired? Like the fights
Yeah.
themselves are very, very Western-esque, right?
Hmm.
Like the
Yeah,
Jango
okay.
Fett fight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's a
way
horseback
Jango Fett
chase.
uses his guns.
Like, except we're in
Definitely.
Starfighters. Like, yeah. Yeah, damn.
Also,
Like, that's pretty cool, actually.
uh,
Yeah, nice.
regarding our favorite moments in the movie, I think my favorite part of the movie is probably like the chunk on Geonosis, from the point where like Count Dooku and Obi-Wan have like their brief conversation, to just like the arena fight where you have these really awesome creatures. Well, you talked about the sound design of the seismic bombs, but I do think that
Yep.
like if you look at these creatures and you look at like a GIF of those creatures, or like like silent visuals, you could still like sort of hear the noises that they usually would make. It's really distinct.
Oh, that reminded me.
Yeah.
So like the on Tatooine, like the Raiders,
The Tusken Raiders.
Yeah.
they're Indians.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
oh, shit. Okay. So used to thinking of them as space Muslims. Okay, yeah.
The parallels go even further, like the shots of like Anakin looking upon like the little village or whatever. Those are sort of like shots that are more or less taken from the classic John Ford Western The Searchers, which is a movie about a guy who really hates Indians, and like one of his family members is kidnapped by them. So yeah, like
that
the Westerns
Akira
really strong.
Akira Kurosawa was influenced by Western movies.
Yeah, he was. Which is funny because
like,
these movies then influenced other Western movies.
Like American like Civil War, like 1920s era, like silent films also were really popular in Japan. Like the largest budget one, I saw it yesterday. The General. You should watch it. It's really good. Actually premiered in Japan before America.
Damn.
That one has like a train scene. Like that one reminds me a lot. Like the train, like the train chase scene reminds me a lot of like the Jango Fett battle, where they like are like crawling on the they're like, what was it? They're like falling off the edge of this, like they're like crawling on the side of the edge of this like bridge
platform,
it's like,
in like like in Camino. Yeah, okay.
And in that one, they were like, it's obvious that they were filming this with real trains, and they had fights on the top of trains where people would go up and down the trains and then like fall onto like the bottom of the train. It looked like really dangerous to film. There's also a scene where the train like falls off the bridge. Like they like destroy a bridge and then have a train fall off of it with people on it. That's like literally a scene in the movie. and it was like film obviously made with a real train.
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore.
They set a bridge on fire with a train on it and then have the train crash. This was like a real thing in the movie.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's when people complain, oh my god, Lucas doesn't have his practical effects. No, this is what we really wanted. Except he needed to have like recreated actual like starfighters, and he needed to have actually put them in space, and then set them on fire and had them like fall off out of orbit and stuff. That would have been perhaps the equivalent. But no, George Lucas did the second best with the technology he had, which is okay.
Weirdly enough, he created lots of models for the movie. people don't notice, but
Yeah.
like, there are lots of model shots in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, like I guess thrust of my shit posty point is that like I think like the complaint about Masigi is a bit much, or at least it typically is kind of a bit overblown with Lucas. I don't know what people were like expecting. Like, oh, okay, we'll just like everything be practical effects or something. Like maybe like I don't know, were they expecting like I don't know, like Jar Jar to be this like rubber puppet or something? Like I don't know, like in the Thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would have been kind of awesome, to be honest.
Dude.
I'm kind of imagining the scene from the film where like this one guy's head rips and it grows legs and walks on its own. And imagining that
Wait,
with
I
Jar Jar
just realized.
sounds kind
Okay.
of cool, to be honest.
Okay, so try to like connect the plot of Star Wars and then just like put it in like Japan, right? Okay, so what is the Trade
Okay.
Federation?
Oh wait a
It's
second.
just literally the
Seems like
Chinese,
our-
right? Like it just
Well, yeah. Yeah. I thought you were gonna say something else.
Alright.
I was like, yeah. Well, they're like ethnically Chinese, basically. They're like the closest to Chinese, but in space.
All
Like,
right, so
accent wise.
now here's where it really gets in. So, what is the transition from Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope? It's the transition
is the
from the Edo period to Meiji period Japan.
Damn. Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah. Okay.
what happened then? It got Japan got westernized, right? And what happened? What happened that like caused it? Do any of you guys remember? What was like the really really big event?
What, from Edo to Meiji?
The black
I would say
ships. The black ships.
black ships. I was thinking Matthew Perry, but I don't know whether that's like the right time period.
Well,
When did Matthew Perry come over?
So like I think it was like the American Navy just like randomly showed up to like the shores of Japan at this like this time with the Meiji like what was it? The war in between it. So you have one side which I think they supported the emperor, right? Whoa, that's another connection. So the Meiji were in support of the emperor, right? And then the other side were in support of the Tokugawa, right?
Yeah.
Emperor Palpatine. And who's the Tokugawa? And the samurai, like the samurai order.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
It's
I
the
see.
Jedi.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
Okay, and who is Luke Skywalker, right? Like, what is he? He's a Ronin, right?
Nice.
They banned swords, right? So there would be like wandering swordsmen that like right.
Hell yeah, no, that's
I think you could do this for like everything.
or just like the entirety of Star Wars, just keep like lining it up. Isobet.
Yeah, with the
okay.
maybe the Gungans are Filipinos.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh damn.
And,
yeah, okay.
Okay. This actually works perfectly. What are the people that like rule over the Gungans?
What, like in the
What's their name?
over, as in like the over, like Naboo, like the
yeah Naboo. Who are they?
Yeah.
Who are they?
Well,
Like think about the architecture. Think about the architecture. And then like what their queen looks like, right? This should be really obvious.
Oh, what?
They're
like,
white. They're literally
wait.
they're white people.
Yeah,
It's
they're
European colonists in the Philippines.
Yeah, Americans. Yeah, okay. Yeah, shit. Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, the Filipino how different and food works. Fuck. Uh, okay, what do we make of the
Or
droids
actually, wait,
then?
no, the
Okay,
Trade Federation, they're not Chinese. The Trade Federations are the Trade Federations are the Americans.
okay,
Because think about in Japan, who was literally the Trade Federation, who put large ships, right? And then there was this large battle that led to the fall of Edo period, or what, like the Tokugawa. I don't know much of the details. In fact, all of my Japanese history is from watching Rurouni Kenshin.
yeah, based.
Yeah, but like this all
Yeah.
this stuff like lines up perfectly. So the Trade Federation are Americans, right? They're literally a trade federation, and they got mad at the Tokugawa for being isolationist, right? So they instituted
Yep.
a rebel group which supported the emperor. The emperor, bro. Okay, so this works
Yeah.
perfectly. So now let's
That
think
does.
back to the clone. What is it? Attack of the Clones.
Okay, go on.
So like, what's going on in Attack of the Clones? Whose large army is being sent over, right? And who are the spies?
Right. So you have like. Okay. Wait.
Okay.
Wait. Roll back. Roll back real quick. The I want to start with the actual assassination of Padme, like Amidala, with the attempt, right?
Okay. Now this is all making sense. Oh, okay. Wait. I have to say this. What happens in
Okay.
Star Wars 6?
As in, like, we talking like like
Um,
Endor, like
Yeah. What happens in the 6th Star Wars movie?
as in like the death of the Emperor, and
a
then like
technologically unknown species. The Empire
oh,
Well,
is that what you're getting at?
then,
Right.
so what?
suggesting it's a Vietnam War reference? Or?
Well, that's not what I was. Okay, that's not exactly what I was thinking. It's World War II.
Because
How
I
do the
think that's
Ewoks
for
play in
George
World War
Lucas.
II?
I mean, to be fair,
I can kind of
the OT is
okay.
like more or
It's
less
World War
World War
II.
II inspired in general.
In my
What,
perspective,
bro?
I see
What?
it.
So what happens when they destroy the Death Star? What do they use to destroy the Death Star? They
Well, they have
basically
like
nuke them,
The
right?
Millennium Falcon.
Yeah. But they just like blow out all their shit up, right?
yeah.
And then
Yeah, okay,
they
sure.
basically surrender, and then they like take over all their territory. So they're the Americans.
Right. Yeah. Okay, well then if we roll back to A New Hope, we aren't like what the destruction of the first Death Star, right? If we say that A New Hope was like the First World War, what's the analogy
Well,
there then?
so what's the analogy?
Hmm.
Well, so A New Hope. So how does A New Hope start, right? Like think about
Right,
what
well, you
they
have
do, right? Like
right, they
what
have the
happens?
plans and they're
Well, what do they do in New Hope? What does the Sith do?
what the Sith are what like
Darth
basically
Vader.
looking like
What does he do?
destroying what Darth Vader is chasing down these
They
plans.
attack they perform a surprise attack, right? To start a large war against a rebel army, right? And the
Okay.
rebel army isn't like, it's not really like a rebel army, right? Like the rebel army huh.
Oh, they're trying to find the hidden the
No, I was thinking it was supposed to be Pearl Harbor.
and to retain the Death Star plans. But
Oh.
They like shoot the planet, right?
if we could,
And then
guys, can you hear me?
they shoot the
So
planet.
Alderaan's destruction is Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, and then all of a
Okay.
sudden they start going like conquering a bunch of planets, right? like the island hopping campaign.
Yeah, nice.
See, everybody thinks they're supposed to be Nazis, right? But it doesn't, like, none of the events line up with the Nazis. Like, there's no Soviet Union.
No, there's no war on two fronts. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, like, it's nothing like that. The rebel army. Okay, so another thing is,
Well, I don't think that there's like a one-to-one analog for like
I
the
don't think there's a
factions
one-to-one
within Star Wars.
analog, but I think it's actually, like, it makes a lot more sense. Like, it's clear that it's pretty inspired by it.
Yeah, I mean, like, people. Well, the general reason people will jump to Nazis is, or at least for like the little tidbit, is always stormtroopers, and they go, okay, therefore, which is, yeah, I mean, like, beyond just like,
And the
haha,
uniforms.
quote unquote
The
evil empire, like.
Imperial officer uniforms also
Think
kind
about
of
who
look
the
like...
rebel army is made up of, right? It's not literally just a rebel army. They have a bunch of
Jedi, former
countries on their
royalty,
side.
smugglers.
Yeah, they have a bunch of allies, right? Which are unified together just against this, like, one conquering power, right? And the big battles in the 6th movie are, like, they're supposed to be like space battleship battles. So it's supposed to be America, right? Like,
Yeah,
America
okay.
and Japan battleship fighting. And then all of a sudden, why does Japan start losing these battles? In real life, like, why did they start losing them? What did America
Yeah, I
have
don't know my level
superiority
too.
over?
Well, like naval superiority, like generally
No,
speaking, was that the thing then?
we
No,
had
not.
America had more aircraft carriers and was able
Right.
to have, like, air superiority over them.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay.
So and what happened in Star Wars? Why did they lose? They lost because they didn't have air superiority.
Yeah, and therefore get nuked.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
At the end, and it ends with basically a large nuke, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously supposed to be Japan. And it like,
Yeah.
the prequels just fit into this perfectly. The prequels are the decline of it's like the rise of the Meiji Empire, and then in between that, it's
Decline of the Shogunate.
it's like the transition to the Hirohito Japan.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
They're
All
literally
right.
called
Okay. So we.
it's the Imperials, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Imperial
Yeah.
Japan.
Which one? So we've established that Star Wars is more so an analogous to the rise and decline of Imperial Japan ending in World War II, and somewhat like, prequels to original trilogy by way of Edo to Meiji period, but along the way being basically nested in like still Western, like the storytelling of like the Western as such.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Well, it's because it's because Japanese samurai movies were like just Western movies, but with samurai.
Samurais. Yeah, okay. Yeah, nice. Jance, I'm gonna have to head out back to the wage cage. It's been good. Definitely if we like do more of these, like on days I'm not waging, I will hang around more. But it's been good. God bless. I'll see you guys later.
All right.
Ciao.
God bless. Goodbye. Yeah. What do you think of my analogy?
Goodbye. All right.
Yeah, what do you think to
Okay.
my analogy?
If we go back to Attack of the Clones in isolation, there's another thing which Lucas kind of references a lot in that movie. Namely, it references film noir films and like sort of crime mystery films like the Maltese Falcon. Because think about like Obi-Wan's role next to sort of being like the lone gunman type. Obi-Wan discovers like a murder plot, and then gets involved into like a larger conspiracy. That's essentially like the sort of classic detective film plot. That you have like a guy who is involved in like a sort of crime that seems a lot smaller, and then suddenly there's like a lot more behind it. And I think like George Lucas pretty like openly stated that as well. And if you think about like Camino, like what is like one of the characteristics there? It's raining all the time, right? And like Coruscant too, it's like sort of a big city with like nightlife and all. So you kind of go from like a big city setting with the nightlife to like a sort of rainy setting. Like Obi-Wan even has to like interrogate like Jango Fett and ask him questions. So I think that's like another interesting reference in Attack of the Clones. So, but there's a topic in this film that we've talked around a bit. What do you? Sorry. Go ahead.
Now okay. So this makes perfect sense. So how does this tie to Japan? What were the spies in Japan called?
I don't remember.
What are what were Japanese spies? Ninja, right?
I actually. Oh, right. Yeah, obviously.
And who used the ninja, right? Which side was heavily using ninja? It wasn't the Meiji.
I don't remember too much of my Japanese history.
Well, it should be obvious. The spying, so the shogunate would use spies constantly, right? So the second movie is supposed to be a ninja movie.
That's possible. With regard to the rest of the plot, I think we kind of have to address the elephant in the room, though. Kayak, what do you think about the romance between Anakin and Padme?
It's great.
Yeah, what is your favorite line in that?
I don't even remember the lines. They're too good to remember.
Well, of course, there's like the "I don't like sand, it's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere" line. But there's a line, or like not so much a line as a scene that I'm really fond of in that, and it's the scene where Anakin and Padme are like sitting on the field, right, and they're talking about politics. And Anakin starts talking about how they need a system where, like all the politicians come together and they come up with a sort of agreement. And Padme essentially says, well, that's exactly the system that we're having. It's just that, like, people don't always agree with one another. And then Anakin essentially says, well, then they ought to be made to. To which Padme replies, it sounds a lot like a dictatorship. To which Anakin replies, well, if it works. So, in fact, we have a real clear Sigma male moment in Attack of the Clones. Also, I think one more thing that we should probably address in regards to Attack of the Clones is how, at the end of the movie, even though it's not called the Empire yet, the Republic is essentially the Empire. Because, they're preparing for the Clone Wars. The ships are essentially Star Destroyers. They have like the armies of clones, which are essentially stormtroopers. Palpatine is watching the whole thing from the balcony. It kind of looks like Triumph, and you have the Imperial March playing over it.
Yeah.
So it's very much like a sort of like this is the birth of the Empire type moment. Now,
The
you want to
Empire
talk
of
about
Japan.
Revenge of the Sith, or do you want?
Yeah. Bro, okay, so this is
Yeah.
this is now this works. Okay. I'm reading a Wikipedia article on this. And so here's what it's supposed to be. Wait, Japanese Samurai World War II.
Also, I'm not
Samurai
sure if Sage Seraph.
Rebels.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
if
so
I've
there
seen
were like
so
large
unspliced
samurai
Star Wars
rebellions
videos.
against Imperial Japan, but there wasn't any in World War II as far as I'm aware. And what it seems like to me is that the later movies are supposed to be it's supposed to be like an alternate history where the leaders of the Allied forces were disaffected samurai.
That sounds quite the interpretation.
Maybe, maybe if I look into this, there was actually like samurai rebels helping the Allies. It doesn't sound like very plausible, but that might actually have happened.
Yeah. So, anyways, so like generally, Attack of the Clones is your favorite Star Wars prequel, and even though this is probably like the sort of general average Joe opinion, I think this one is my favorite Star Wars prequel.
Yeah, it's
Revenge
pretty
of
good
the
as
Sith.
well.
And I think like part of this is I think this movie is almost, with the exception of like the time frame within which it takes place, is almost sort of like a perfect Aristotelian drama, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like it very much follows the sort of like classic Aristotelian story structure, or for like tragedies, like the sort of structure that something like Oedipus Rex also uses. It kind of follows that to a T. Like you have like your hero at the beginning, and there's a certain situation a catastrophe that he's trying to avert, and like the ironic twist is that by trying to avert the catastrophe, he himself is the cause of the catastrophe, and he comes to terms with that, and by that also kind of ceases to be the hero. It's like pretty straightforward, just like sort of Aristotelian dramatic structure. But yeah, like I think Attack of the Clones is really good, but this one to me is, I guess what I like about Revenge of the Sith is just it's a really compelling finale to the trilogy. It kind of puts everything that has been previously established together and pays it off in a really satisfying manner.
Yeah. It has a really good ending.
Yeah.
Bro, okay,
it's
I'm
great,
not the
but
only person who thinks this, by the way.
the
It looks like.
Japanese history Star Wars parallels.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What's your favorite part in the Revenge of the Sith?
The last part, the ending.
So the duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
That part is pretty great as well. Now, I think I would also choose that, but let me choose another scene in that case. I think my favorite part is actually one of the moments where nothing big happens. You have the scene right before the duel between Palpatine and the other Jedi, right? Where they storm into his office. You have like this other scene where Anakin is alone in the Jedi, like in their meditation room, Jedi Council. He's alone in that room, and he's looking out of the window, and he has like this sort of weird force. He has this connection with Padme, and he knows everything that he knows now. He knows that Palpatine is the Sith Lord. He knows that Padme is probably dying. He knows that like Palpatine's knowledge is the only way to stop this. At least he thinks that this is the case, and he's just like really aware of like everything that's going on right now, and like in the off you can quietly hear Palpatine's voice even saying, "I hope you realize that if they kill me, there's nobody who can help you to save her." And it's just this moment where you see Anakin making his decision, and it's mostly it's completely without dialogue, with the exception of like that off voice of Palpatine, and it's just told through visuals. It's like probably like the best sort of filmmaking moment when it just comes to visual storytelling within the Star Wars prequels. It's a really good movie, and like a really good moment in that movie.
Yeah, the scene where Anakin just killed all the kids was also pretty good.
That was pretty surprising for a movie like this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
like on
it put all the plot together,
Sorry, go
right?
ahead.
Like this is the destruction of the Jedi Order.
Right. I remember I was pretty shocked as a kid when I saw like just him igniting the lightsaber when the kid asks him what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand it makes sense because he's the bad guy now. He's killed kids before, actually, like in the Tusken Raider scene in Attack of the Clones. He later on says that he killed all of them, not just the man, but also the women and the children too. But like still, it's pretty shocking to see him actually like kill like the younglings. At least as a kid, it was.
Yeah, you know that during the Meiji Restoration, they just started like constantly killing a bunch of samurai, and they like forced them to they like banned swords, right?
So you're saying that's like sort of like the
that's
Order
one of the
66
most
analog?
That was one of the first connections I made. Also, Darth Vader's suit is just a samurai suit. Like, look at his helmet.
Oh yeah, that's clearly inspired.
Yeah.
That's very obvious. I mean, you also have like with Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's like a sort of vaguely sort of Asian sounding name.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, you know what Japanese period dramas are called?
What?
Jedi Geki.
Yeah.
The first word of that being Jedi.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like a pretty clear sort of like influence. They were just taking they were just essentially like taking the name of like Japanese period dramas. And
You know that they were trying.
We're using that
George Lucas tried to get the thief from the Forbidden, or the what was it, the Fortress?
Forbidden Fortress. Sorry,
yeah,
Hidden
the Forbidden
Fortress.
Fortress. Yeah, he tried to get the thief to play Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh yeah, I heard about.
I mean, the name Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, come on, man. Like, why is that played by a white person? But he was just trying to get all these like Japanese actors to play him, and like none of them would.
Yeah, Tofino
Anakin,
Mifune didn't
An-
don't
bro,
want to play as
Anakin,
well.
Anakin, come on, Anakin. The names of all the Star Wars characters, of all the Jedi, are like basically Japanese, right? They're
Yeah.
supposed to be like Japanese names.
So George Lucas is the first weeb. We can agree on this, right?
Yeah. Okay. So all right. I fixed the timeline. So Revenge of the Sith is actually this is like the actual like fighting of the Meiji Restoration. Everything beforehand is what comes up to it, and the scenes where he just like randomly starts slaughtering all of the Jedi. That's the
Oh shoot, Kayak left. So well, while Kayak isn't here, I should probably read some of the chat. I should probably disconnect. Wait a second. Try to rejoin. All right.
Sorry, I disconnected.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay, so let's get back to the story, right? I can't unsee this now. It's impossible to talk about anything else. So Trade Federations America and the Jedi killing is Satsuma rebelling. Well, the question will be who is Anakin, right? There might be a specific person that he's supposed to be. And Hirohito would just be Emperor Meiji, right? But so in Star Wars they'd be like the same person. There'd be like no period in between. There'd be no like change of power, right?
Right.
Okay. And the Jedi are obviously influenced by Buddhism, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So
I
what
mean,
are the
well, it's like technically like George Lucas wanted it to be sort of, as Mark Hamill called it, religion's greatest hits, meaning that he would take like elements from all kinds of different religions. But like George Lucas himself identifies as a Buddhist, so I guess that would make sense.
Yeah. So what would the Sith be then? They're supposed to sort of be like occultists in some way.
In the original screenplay from the 70s for Star Wars, just titled The Star Wars, which is still very different from the original screenplay. The Sith are essentially envisioned to be like a enemy samurai clan.
Yeah. Well, that much is obvious, but the question is, what is their philosophy supposed to like be?
I mean, you had like, have you ever watched the movie The Sword of Doom?
No.
It's an old samurai movie from the 60s. It's really cool. It stars Tetsuya Nakadai, who is also an actor in many Kurosawa films. Like he plays a role in Run, he plays a role in Yojimbo. And it's essentially about a samurai who tries to be, well, not really tries to be, he kind of path of like just absolute violence and carnage. I forgot what exactly his ideology is, but he's almost supposed to be like a force of nature in the Buddhist sense in that movie. So like maybe it's something like that.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Rurouni Kenshin? Because
No.
there's a equivalent of the Sith in that. Man with burned face. Shishio Makoto.
That would make sense, I guess.
Bro, yeah, he sort of looks like Darth Vader. His face got burned off, and he wears a. Okay, I think that this character was just designed after Darth Vader, because obviously this came afterwards, right? Like the
Kayak, I think you cut out
so he
for a
wears a
moment.
bunch of bandages around it, right? And the bandages look like Darth Vader's mask.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Although, like, remember in Hidden Fortress, you also have like a samurai character who later on gets scarred.
Yeah. Well, I'm just making another connection to something that I saw. This would be inspired by Star Wars, not the other way around. So yeah, but samurai with face burned. Wait. Let me see if I can find it. Samurai with face burned. Bro, I can only find the character from the anime. He also reminds me of what's the guy from the Fallout New Vegas DLC?
I haven't played Fallout New Vegas, to be honest.
Oh wait. Western movie.
Also, I think we got a message. I think Kayak's analogy really falls apart outside the main premise of an old decaying bureaucratic regime being replaced by a more dictatorial militaristic regime. I don't know. I think that there are like some clear parallels beyond that. But
I'm
wouldn't
trying to
necessarily
find
say
like
that's
each individual
that's a
one. I mean,
one-to-one.
obviously George Lucas was influenced by these movies like really heavily for Star Wars, so it would make a lot of sense for there to be a lot of parallels between the topics of the movies as well, right? For the plot itself to be a parallel.
Right, like obviously there are like some parallels, even though like you also get some World War II influences, you get some Western influences, as we already talked about. So it's like obviously not a clear-cut history of Japan or like a clear-cut history of the Wild West or a clear-cut history of the Second World War. It's mostly inspired by these things. I mean, there's also a bit of the fall of Rome in the Star Wars prequels. You have a scene at the end of The Phantom Menace, to get back to that movie, where you have like a shot that very much mirrors a shot from an old movie about the fall of the Roman Republic. And over that shot, they play the Gungan victory celebration theme. But the Gungan victory celebration theme is just the Emperor's theme sped up. So it's in a sense supposed to sort of mirror the fall of the Roman Republic, or the further decay of the Roman Republic. So there's a bit of Roman history in the Star Wars prequels as well, which should be clear with like with senators and like having it literally called the Republic, and then having, you know, a guy named himself Emperor and kind of turn the whole thing into his empire. There are like different themes. I guess what I'm trying to say is like there are different themes from different aspects of history, all sort of meshed into one. So even though you won't have like any one-to-one similarities or any one-to-one analogs to any particular event in human history, you will have like a lot of analogs to different aspects of Japanese history or European history or American history. Heck, even a bit of German history, since they really had to name Palpatine the Chancellor instead of, let's say, the President. I think that was actually inspired by the fact that
You're cutting out.
you know, is it better now?
Yeah.
So I think that like naming Palpatine the Chancellor as an example was very much inspired by the sort of like transition from Weimar Germany to Nazi Germany. Because, you know, like the head of Germany was the Reichskanzler, Chancellor Palpatine.
Yeah.
So that seems to be like a pretty obvious analog.
Yeah, I think that they were sort of like trying to mix the two. They were supposed to be like a mix of Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany, right? Because I mean, America just did not get into like large scale sea battles with Germany, right? And all of the big battles in the Star Wars movies are naval battles, well, specifically like space naval battles, but with like large spaceships. Like those, it's the majority of the battles. So obviously, like that is a parallel. And then like the nuke parallel is also a bit strong.
Oh yeah, sure, certainly. I mean, then again, you also get with Star Wars, you also get like a bunch of like fairly recent, sort of like historical parallels. Like to name two obvious examples, in Return of the Jedi, the Ewoks, according to George Lucas, there might be stand-ins for like other parts of history as well, obviously. But Lucas admitted that he was sort of heavily influenced by the Viet Cong and like this idea of having like a very like technologically underdeveloped culture face like a sort of like imperial force, and like the imperial force just, you know, like really overestimating their own strength and losing against the little guy, so to speak. And the other sort of like very clear sort of reference to current day sort of history, like very modern 20th century history and 21st century history for that matter, is parts of the Clone War are in fact supposed to mirror not only the Vietnam War but also the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
again, there's like a lot of weird stuff with the Star Wars prequels.
They have weapons of mass destruction, bro.
I mean, that would be kind of funny. Yeah, we're only going to Geonosis because we think they have weapons of mass destruction.
But isn't that like basically what happened?
It's more or less what happened.
Yeah. But the difference is that they did have weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah. Palpatine was the good guy all along. Actually, like, what do you think about like these arguments that, like, sometimes you get people making these like fun cases, like, what if Palpatine is actually the good guy in Star Wars? What do you think about that? Is Palpatine the good guy in Star Wars?
Nah, he's not.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say that he is. To be fair, I wouldn't necessarily say that the Jedi are the good guys. Like, the Jedi are horribly flawed themselves.
Yeah, wait, BRB, I need to do something really quick.
All right.
It'll
Kai
be
will
like
soon
a few
return.
minutes.
In the meantime, but let's see, maybe we've missed some chat messages. They're all more or less related to the specific conversation that we were having. Like Sage Seraph compared Palpatine to Calvin Coolidge. Also, I should probably check out, since Sage Seraph mentioned So Uncivilized channel, which produces Star Wars videos. I do occasionally watch Star Wars YouTube channels. I'm not like massively into that, but I do occasionally watch them. So I might know the channel, even though I couldn't really remember them when you first told me about them. So Uncivilized. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, of course I know that
All right,
channel.
I'm back.
That channel is awesome. Yeah, I was just looking at our comments, and one of the guys asked if we know the videos by So Uncivilized,
No.
who does videos on Star Wars most of the time. And like, I just clicked on his channel, and I think I've watched all of his videos. They're actually really good. He made a video on why the new trilogy, the sequel trilogy, doesn't work. He made a video on why Palpatine is the greatest movie villain. And he made a video defending the dialogue in the Star Wars prequels. And he made a video saying that it's time to appreciate Jar Jar Binks. I think I haven't watched that one yet.
I think he's making
I wonder
these
what the
videos.
argument's going to be.
I think these videos are like just intentionally controversial.
I mean, the
Wait,
title
no,
certainly,
no.
like the choice of topic.
No. Oh no. Okay, so you remember my my racist parallel? That I made, like the parallel I made with the Gungans, right? And then the Tatooine, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Do you mean the Naboo?
yeah, Naboo or whatever. Wait, isn't that okay? Tatooine isn't that like the okay? Never mind. Forget that I ever said that. Yeah. So the Naboo, right? Okay. So what is like? Why are they using the Gungans as a rebel faction?
Could you repeat the question?
So they're using the Gungans as a rebel faction, right?
Yeah, more or less.
So like think of like a historical parallel to when like black people were used as cannon fodder against like some random force, right?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So, okay, so the Trade Federation, right? Who is the Trade Federation?
Well,
It's
I
America, right?
can afford them as Chinese. Well, you could say they're America. The Chinese could also kind of work because of the very clear sort of ethnic.
Yeah, although they fit better as America.
Yeah, sure.
I suppose it's sort of like a mix, but okay, so they're not the Filipinos. They just are black people, and they're revolting. They're revolting against America, right? So what are they doing?
Um, I
It's
don't know. Just give me a hint.
uh, the historical parallel, right?
Mhm.
Would be race riots in the 1930s and 40s. Like the 1930s, like Great Depression era race riots.
That seems a bit far-fetched, to be honest.
No, that's what it is.
I might be wrong, but so someone should.
It's
So
either
if
that
anyone knows,
or the use of black troops in the Civil War.
okay, listen, Kayak. So we have 3 viewers left. So if any of our 3 viewers accidentally knows George Lucas' Discord, give them the invite so that we can discuss with George Lucas whether or not the Gungan
Gungans are
army fighting the Federation is like an analogy for the race
It's just a race
riots in
riot.
the Depression era.
in all
Because I
in
was
all
just thinking of it
seriousness,
as like,
I think it's actually just so Japan they actually did this a lot where they would whenever there was some like foreign power, they would just give like supplies to like rebel forces or whatever, and then they just like take over the territory like immediately afterwards, and then just like steal all their food. Like this happened to Vietnam, right?
yeah, that tends to happen a lot with the
Yeah, I mean,
Japs.
but that happens a lot in war, but Japan did that a lot.
Yeah,
Oftentimes they would actually just support the Japanese, and then they just get screwed over like immediately afterwards.
Japanese history, I don't know that much about it, but the outlines of it that I know seem quite interesting. But I think we haven't talked about that much about Revenge of the Sith yet.
Yeah, we haven't talked that much about it.
So I guess we already talked about our favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, are there any other interesting? So there's a reference to a very popular mafia movie in Revenge of the Sith. Do you know what it is?
What is it?
Have you ever seen The Godfather?
Only part 1.
Okay, but like, what happens at the end of The Godfather?
It's been ages since I've seen it.
So remember the whole like baptism scene where Michael is sending in as the Godfather for like his godson who's getting baptized, and he's being asked if he like disavows the devil and all his works and empty promises, etc. And in the meanwhile, you keep cutting back to the mobsters as they're shooting like all the other mobsters from the rival family, and like that the Corleones used to make business with, but not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that scene is essentially paralleled in the scene in which Palpatine is giving his speech, starting the First Galactic Empire. And you keep cutting back to the scene where Anakin as Darth Vader is just like killing the separatists by cutting them down.
Mm-hmm.
That's more or less the Godfather moment.
Yeah.
There's also strong parallels in the entire trilogy to both to Metropolis, the old Fritz Lang silent movie, the science fiction one, where original trilogy purists often kind of complain about the fact that Anakin builds C-3PO. They think that's kind of odd, but from like a sort of like metaphorical sort of like from the perspective of having like analogies to other films and kind of generating meaning through this, it actually makes a lot of sense. Because do you know where the design for C-3PO comes from? Whatever robot that's inspired by.
Where?
C-3PO was inspired by the robot design from Metropolis. And that's important because Metropolis has a character who builds that robot who also has a metal hand, like Anakin. He loses his hand in Attack of the Clones, and it gets replaced with like a robot hand. Actually, like his entire arm gets replaced. And then you have another interesting parallel to this, where this character, essentially, what he's trying to do is to, I don't remember the details, the specific one, trying to get his wife, to bring his wife back, or to save his wife, which is more or less what Anakin is trying to do in Revenge of the Sith. And then, of course, you also have like sort of references to Anakin kind of, when he was becoming Darth Vader, kind of being like Frankenstein's monster on the operating table.
Yeah.
So you kind of have like references to these like sort of classic science fiction stories as well, which you generally kind of get sort of interesting parallels, I think, in the Star Wars prequels to other science fiction movies in the way that technology is depicted. Like the sort of clean, pristine corridors on Camino in Attack of the Clones seem very similar to like the sets in George Lucas's THX 1138. And on the other hand, you also have like this entire fact that you have like Attack of the Clones, to come back to that movie, is a movie that has like lots of sort of factory lines in it. Like you have the clones being essentially mass produced, and on the other hand, you have the droids being mass produced.
Yeah.
It's sort of like really interesting parallel there. So the Star Wars prequels are a lot about like sort of technology and like the sort of negative effects of it as well. In fact, the entire Star Wars series essentially has like this entire thing with technology where, you know, like war is essentially depicted as this large war machinery where they're essentially just growing soldiers for the purpose of this war. Anakin's fall from grace essentially contains him becoming, to quote Obi-Wan, more machine than man.
Okay, I have to watch this. Dude, wait, I gotta send this to you on Discord.
Right?
Have you seen Space? You know about Space Battleship Yamato?
I know about it. Yeah.
All right.
I think it inspired. You can hear me, right?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
It has a character in it that's like identical to R2D2.
All right.
It's
I
also
know
a
that
space opera, and it came out 3 years before Star Wars.
it seemingly I heard that it inspired bits and pieces of Star Wars, which
So
is
Star
possible
Wars
because I think
is
like
an
the
anime.
last draft was sort of
It's an anime, bro.
yeah, partially. Yeah, they do take a lot of stuff from that sort of thing. I mean, it's mostly I would still say it's mostly like a sort of samurai period drama mixed with a western. Like, sure, it probably took a lot of anime influences as
but-
well.
Wait, I need to watch it, but a lot of these 70s, 60s, 50s like Japanese like anime stuff, like like what is it? What's the name of the something my tongue. It's one of the earliest ones. It was actually popular in America as well.
Astro Boy?
Astro Boy, like a lot of these, their plot was like basically centered around Japanese westernization and World War II, right?
Right.
Okay, so I have to watch Spaceship Battleship or Yamato, but there might be like actual like evidence for my theory in it.
Yeah, I suggest that at some point we could probably make just watch a bunch of episodes of Space Battleship Yamato and then do a Zoomer Cinema stream on that.
Yeah, we should do it.
All right. By the way, I think we clocked in over the 2-hour mark. Unless we have anything particular to say about the Star Wars prequels, we might slowly end the stream.
Okay.
So, Kayak, anything you wanted to say about these movies, which hasn't been said yet?
They were really good.
Yeah, I would agree. These movies are indeed kino. So this was the first Anime Rightist Zoomer Cinema stream. There are going to be many more like this because whenever so I should probably say that in regards to the Natural Law video series, I'm going to make more videos in that series. But due to university and similar obligations, it's probably sometimes going to take me a while. So if I have like difficulties due to time constraints of creating more sort of in-depth philosophical content, we'll probably just do a Zoomer Cinema stream or something equivalent to that. So there might be more Zoomer Cinema streams in the future. And with that out of the way, I wish you all a good night and thanks for listening. God bless.
God bless.